Here's one I haven't played yet since I got this beautiful guitar. It's called Ask Her First. It's a variation on it. I want to call it Andy because it's about Andy. But the poignant line, why it's called Ask Her First, is I sing this in a refrain. And I don't think that God would get in our way, but still I know to ask her first. So, the rest of the song was about Andy. But it always felt incomplete. There's basically one really cool cycle that just goes around and around. I could play and sing the whole song like that. Oddly, in this song, the verse and the chorus melody I sing can fit over any part. So sometimes I fuck up and I play the verse and I'm singing the chorus, or sometimes I'm playing the chorus and I'm singing the verse. It's very strange how it all works. It must all be in the same key or something. I don't really know musical theory, otherwise it would probably be a really simple problem to solve. But it's not really a problem. When you listen to the recordings, it's a neat 3.5 or 4.5 minute song, depending on how long you do the choruses. This is not how you play it, by the way. I'm just experimenting here. Like I said, I'm trying to write another part. So my guitar's having a hard time staying in tune because I went back to a half step down. I started as a whole step down, which was very interesting, but then it became frustrating because I don't have a capo. And some of my songs, you cannot play a whole step down. I was very frustrated. It's like very complicated. Some songs that are simply just like a few little hammer taps, suddenly we're like all over. And then some songs I literally just couldn't sing because when you tune lower, the voice naturally goes higher to match it, and it would make, so basically some songs that I was singing kind of in a baritone, I guess this is a baritone, suddenly I'd have to sing up in a higher octave, and that's fine, but then in the way I wrote it in the baritone, if I had gone high in the baritone, now I have to go higher in the new way to sing it, and it meant that my falsetto didn't reach it because I can't sing like I did when I was 17 anymore. I can still sing all the songs I wrote in my 20s. I can still do anything I did in the Stereolites and all my bands. No problem. And I'm not just saying that like Billy Corgan does. I mean, I have no problem singing my own songs in the normal tuning. And I'm sure that will change because I see it changes. Even Trent Reznor. And Billy Joel did it. Prince did it. Every artist I've seen as they approach their 50s. I mean, I'm only 42. But as you go into your 50s, they would just transpose the songs and drop them down. And honestly, I didn't even notice during Billy Joel. I'm not an uber fan of Billy Joel, so I didn't even realize that Innocent Man was lower. What else did I find out was lower? Uptown Girl. And the song I cover. What song did I cover on acoustic guitar? Just the Way You Are. Everything was tuned down a little bit because his voice got deeper. But there was one song that surprised me. For the longest time. Whoa. Woo. So he got it so he doesn't have to do that part anymore because he probably can't. But funny enough, he had backup singers, and there were parts during the verse where he would just not sing. He'd literally have a sentence, and he would leave out one or two words, and the two backup singers would fill it in like a magic trick. It was so, not funny, but honestly, I don't think most people noticed. I was with Natalia. I don't even think she noticed, and I didn't point it out. I'm not about analyzing and critiquing concerts or talking through a concert. I'd rather just, My friend Deshaun used to literally go to shows with a notebook. And he encouraged me to do it, but I can't bring myself. I like to say that I don't care what people think and that I'm in my own world and do my own thing, but I have limits. So first, Deshaun would write the set list as it was happening, which now with Setlist FM, and I've never gone to a show that I didn't see on Setlist FM. Actually, that's not true. There's some shows like I saw Damon Albarn at Lincoln Center. I saw Moby, Natalie, what's her name? From 10,000 Maniacs, and Natalie Merchant. And I saw David Bowie, David Byrne, Dave Matthews, and Moby, and Sean Lennon, and Natalie Merchant, and movie stars. I don't remember the actors. I think Kevin Spacey sang. I never found that one. But then, of course, the last time I looked, I think it was up. So I don't know. Maybe people do write down these set lists and then upload them years later. I don't know why I'm rambling. I'm just saying I have to tune my guitar again. So I'll upload this piece of shit. Maybe not. It's 6 minutes long. I don't want to waste the video. I'm using up my phone's memory. I'm using up your time. So these are all minus 14 cents off from standard tuning. That's what I have to do because when I got the guitar, I downloaded this tuner and I used the Half Step Down app. And now suddenly it says Half Step Down has premium features and I have to pay $7.99 a month to use it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay $7.99 a month so I can tune my guitar Half Step Down. Especially when I know I can just use the main tuner and just, match up the sound. So everything is touch. No, it's not working. Why are you proving me wrong? Oh, maybe because I had it touching the guitar and it was feeling the vibration. Yeah, that's probably it. Is that minus 14? See what I'm trying to do? Tuning with digital tuners is so frustrating because it's negative 15, negative 16, and the smallest move up goes to negative 11. And then you tune down, and now suddenly it's negative 18. It's crazy. So really, a lot of times, this is why when people tune, you see them do this. Do it all the way down, because what's happening is your string is actually from being in the same part of wound up around here and here and here, they get indentations. This is why strings eventually break, because the metal gets worn out. It's wound. It's almost like fluffy in a way. You know what I'm saying? There's air and space in between, and it gets more and more constricted. I suppose it will rust and deteriorate too in a chemical sense that we don't even detect as humans. Not visibly, not by our sense of touch. I was watching a very interesting program last night on Gaia. I do subscribe to Gaia, about the tree of life. Now, every major culture and religion and story of our creation as man and the story of culture and life on Earth pretty much has the same mathematical equations baked into all depictions of the tree of life. It's always the same number of branches, the same areas, 9 spaces of hell, 13 chambers of heaven. Very fascinating. And some depict different birds in the trees or what have you. And some of it seems to tell actual parts of our DNA. Like there's little codes, numerical sequences, similarly to how the Hebrew language works mathematically as well as alphabetically. The numbers literally can be added up and words can equal other words, and it's amazing how it all works out that way. Fascinating language, if you didn't know that. It's the only language that's like that, which makes me believe that Hebrew is the actual Earth language and the original language. I'm not Jewish, by the way. Anyway, though I have believed, I have thought of converting several times. I've looked into it. When my friend Andres was here, he's Puerto Rican and I guess Catholic Christian. He wasn't really raised with a religion at all. Unlike me, he didn't go to Catholic school or go to church on weekends. So he's just open minded, and I love that about him. He's always curious, which I find, unfortunately, for just average people that I meet in the city, it seems very uncommon for there to be such a curious, knowledgeable, well read straight man. He is heterosexual. Um, so I find him wildly refreshing and entertaining, and we're really good friends. And he came to stay with me, and I actually kicked him out. I feel really bad about that. But what I was trying to say was he wanted to go visit a rabbi. He had made an appointment. And we always sightsee. I love to do that stuff. I was watching an episode of The Kardashians when they went to London. Scott took Rob to an art museum, and Rob was like, I know there's something else going on, because Scott would never, he was trying to say him and Scott would never be caught dead in an art museum on a vacation. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to go to all the art museums around the world. So, I was very excited when Andres said he had made an appointment with the rabbi, and we were going to go talk to him at a synagogue. And I think it was Midwood or Bay Parkway. Borough Park, Williamsburg, Hasida. My cousin grew up on East 7th Street in Newkirk, Foster Avenue, down there. Very Jewish. We were the only ones without the curls and the little string hanging off the belt. I don't know the names of any of these things. They also wear something inside under their shirt. The women wear wigs. Do they shave their heads and wear wigs? I don't think so. And we asked the kids once. So the neighbors had 9 children. One of them was named Abi, and Abi was our age. So we asked Abi one day, and he said, he doesn't know, but he talks to the kids at school and whatnot. And he said they actually do have a ritual to cut a hole in a sheet and place it over the wife, because it's something about respect. We find it backwards in a Western culture, but it's the same thing about women wearing burqas and protecting or covering their face. It's supposed to actually be a way to preserve and respect women, and not to be able to look at them lustfully. When people like to look at it like it's a nasty thing, like we're condemning them. But if you actually speak to the women who partake in their religion, they see it as this, that it's actually a thing about that upholds their purity and beauty. And I find it very beautiful, the whole religion. And I do have a copy of the Quran too. I'm reading. I like to be educated on everything. I don't think anything's got it right, but this Tree of Life story about our beginnings was very, very enlightening. And then went into the Tower of Babel. If you believe in this whole ancient aliens theories, which I'm starting to now, because in the 90s when we were saying that the world was much older than we thought it was, it didn't mean anything to me. But now that I'm older and I'm realizing that these bones and this DNA testing and all these testing of these old temples, what it's showing is that we're not quite yet there's a 3 society, a type A, a type 1, a type 2, a type 3. I said A, it could be ABC or 1, 2, 3. In the next 100 or 200 years or so, we will enter the type 1 society. So we're we're at the infancy of our development civilization. In a type 3 society, that's where you can, build, I guess, what do you call it? Like a Faraday cage, but when you build one around a planet, like there's supposed to be this way to, like, let's say you have a small star, like the sun is a dwarf star, you can build almost like I'm not going to say Death Star, but you know what I mean? There's a way to build around it so that the planet is actually taking the energy from a star. And there's a word for that. It's actually a technique. I don't know how they know this. How do we know this? You know what I'm saying? There is clearly, obviously, this hidden. I'm not going to say secret societies or whatever, but there is definitely this information. Maybe it's in the Vatican. I don't know where it is, who has it, but there is definitely this information. And once you look into all that stuff and realize that there are methods and that we know how to do this, we just can't do it yet because of our our abilities to mine and build and craft things. If you're not into this stuff, then you don't even, it's so hard to have reference points, like when we find these crafts, there's no seams, there's no rivets. It's all like fused as one solid piece of metal. I mean, it'll come from an isotope that's not on this planet. And then you look at the moon dust, and it's also not found anywhere on Earth. And with all the anomalies of the moon is hollow. It really does start to look like the moon is a synthetic planet. I've heard people say it's a hologram. I can't really get behind that. But it does seem to be an artificial, just alone on the distance. The fact that it is perfectly equidistant, not equidistant, but it is perfectly placed to the Earth, such that we can have eclipses, perfect eclipses, that it's in the mathematical precision place between the sun and the Earth. That's not that's not a naturally occurring thing. That couldn't have happened. That was planned. Also planned is that it always faces us. There's only one other moon. I believe it's around. I was gonna say Saturn. That was my gut, but now I want to say Jupiter. I don't know. There's one other moon that does that. It doesn't rotate in its orbit. It just stays fixed as it goes around. So I have other theories too about that Middle Eastern. I don't know the name of it, but that Middle Eastern site where everyone circles around and they touch and pray. It almost looks like a monolith. It's not a rectangle; it's a cube. Um, I don't know what that's called, but funnily enough, oddly enough, on the moon there's this thing called the Soul Cube, and it looks like that but bigger. And I was hearing a theory that's what causes purgatory, or that is purgatory, and that our souls, that the moon somehow has to do with taking our human souls. That our soul is really who we are. And if you believe in this whole tree of life theory and everything, it shows all of the rulers of the world, and it lines up perfectly to everything we know about ancient cultures and societies, Romans, Greeks, Mayans, everything. It all lines up, the history of the world. But as you go back further and further, the first god who ruled over the planet lived for 28,000 years. And I don't know if they were archangels or, other kinds of beings, but allegedly, when you look at all these numbers, I don't know if this is all translated from these Sumerian texts, from these scrolls, from these tablets. And, it could be that we were misinterpreting it, but the way it looks, what we know of language, and like we said, everything else works out. So it seems like we have the correct way of translating. But there's many, many, many other pieces of evidence and stories and things that have been passed down that hint at the tree of life could possibly give us this immortality. It's not real immortality, but they believe it's somewhere between 20 and 50,000 years would be the lifespan of a god. And I'm talking about all these Greek gods. If you believe in all the mythology and say perhaps it's not mythology, if you look at it to be how could this possibly be true, and you look for evidence of it, it's miraculous. And allegedly, this theory was that God created man purposely so that we would expire, so that our actual soul lives will still live 20 to 50,000 years. But, it's this forced amnesia that our soul will re-enter. It's this whole cycle of reincarnation, and that, we'll have no memory. Oddly enough, though, we'll have, if you're shot in your side when you are reborn, you'll have a birthmark there or a port wine stain. There's lots of things like that seem to happen, which is very interesting. I'm not saying this is it. I'm saying that I love reading about all this, learning about all this. It's possible. And if you believe anything is possible, I'd like to believe anything is possible. I mean, everything is just vibrational energy. Everything that's a solid matter is just the space between the atoms at a different frequency. If we were able to match, if I somehow was able to dial in the frequencies, well, one, that would be able to let us see all the dimensions. And I mean, obviously, clearly there's beings in other dimensions that we don't detect. But if we were able to dial in the same frequency as the wall, we'd be able to move right through it. So if our science knows this, and if we're such a primitive baby technology as the human race right now, in the future when we're a type 1, or imagine a type 3 society. So that's what I'm saying. If your Earth, if your planet here is a lot older than we thought it was, and then the other societies that lived on here had that many more thousands of years to develop and language and build this Earth, because it seems like it gets reset not just by what did they say, the dinosaur, the mainstream science said that what an asteroid or a meteor devoured the planet. That could happen, and it will happen again. But not only that, it seems like every now and then the magnetic poles switch in a way that causes all the tectonic plates to shift up, and that's probably what caused continental drift, if it really was continental drift. Because the more I look, the more I see that we have a lot of cities in the ocean that things just kind of leveled out. So to me, I look at the world as if it's an 8 ball. You know how you shake up a magic 8 ball? It really seems to me that there's been many times in the past when the Earth gets shaken like that, and it's either by a comet and meteors, or by the pole shifting and it'll spin too fast, or even just nature. Um, the ice ages causing floods and rivers and droughts, and, you know, the Middle East and all the desert, even in the U.S., used to all be lush. Um, and these things change. It's not just man-made. It's not just global warming. I'm sure we're doing that to such a minuscule bit, but when we drill miles deep into Antarctica and pull out these ice tubes that going back 80,000 years, we see that the Earth's temperature used to fluctuate between 160 degrees in one day. We see that overnight. This great flood, it wasn't a myth. There was great floods. So these things are happening on our planet, and it's going to happen again. And it seems that these other societies, if they had lived for thousands of years, they probably had technology that exceeds our own. We have this mindset because we were taught in school that it was like these primitive. They weren't primitive. They were way more advanced than us. And they probably learned the ability to get off this planet. They probably did go and settle Mars. They probably did go and settle Venus. They probably terraformed these things. For all we know, Mars is a planet that was once green like Earth and had been totally filled with Earthlings, Martians, as humans. And then they had a nuclear war, and that's what happened to the planet. And now, if the gray aliens are us in the future, if that's what we've evolved into, that's why they always come around whenever we play with nuclear technology, because they know we're stupid and we're going to fuck up our planet again. So it seems like they're protectors of the Earth, and they intervene when they need to, because they look at it as their Earth. They're the original human race that knows the full story. Mankind here, it's like we all have amnesia. We are the dumb animals. I don't know. This is just a brief. It's way more complicated than this. I'm just trying to summarize it in layman's terms to someone who would have no idea of the trip that I've been on, what I've been researching. I'm just trying to make it easy for someone who's not exposed to this kind of thinking, that this is a little bit of how I'm looking at things. And it's so fascinating. I don't know why all of these things would be hidden, and if we do know all of this stuff, why it would be, but there is a secret space force. There are all these things. There are all these conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. So it just kind of makes you think, well, if that much was true, then what else is true? All right.